Hi, I'm James Ward, a technical evangelist for Flex at Adobe. This is part two of a two-part screencast series on how to use Flash Builder 4 to connect a Flex application to a backend Java system. In this part, we're going to walk through how to add Hibernate into the picture. So we're going to use Hibernate for persistence, we're going to use Spring for our services layer, and then we'll build a Flex application that connects to that. So let's jump in. So here I am in Eclipse, and I've installed the Flash Builder 4 Beta 2 plugin, Eclipse plugin, that I downloaded from labs.adobe.com. So what we're looking at is I've already set up a web project that will deploy out to my Tomcat server. And let's walk through the configuration that I've set up here in this web application. First, in the web XML, we have the Spring Dispatcher Servlet. That's just the standard Spring Dispatcher Servlet. And then the RDS Dispatch Servlet, and this one is used to tell Flash Builder what services exist within this server. And that's just part of BlazeDS. For my Spring configuration, I've set up the Flex message broker and added the Flex remoting service so that we can talk from Flex to our Spring backend. I've also told Spring to look for classes in the blah package and do any injection and those sorts of things, or expose those as remote services. I've set up a bean for a data source. That's just my H2 database. And then I have a session factory that uses the annotation session factory bean. And what that is going to do is look for classes in the blah package that are Hibernate classes, and then it's going to set up and do persistence on those. So that's my Spring configuration. I also have a little bit of configuration in here for BlazeDS just to describe the channel information for BlazeDS. And then for my libraries and my WebInf lib, I have Spring 3. I have a nightly build of the Spring BlazeDS integration and a nightly build of BlazeDS, and then Hibernate and all of their dependencies. So let's go in and actually create a backend entity bean now. So let's go create a new class. Call this one bar. I'm going to just be creating a list of bars and showing how Flex can connect to that and add bars and fetch them. Okay, so let's create that, and now in our public class bar, let's tell this thing that it's an entity, and then let's give it a few properties. Make a string ID and a string name, and so those are our two properties for bar. Let's go generate the getters and setters for these. So I can just select those, and there we code gen out the getters and setters. And now on ID, I need to specify a little bit of extra information for Hibernate. So I need to tell this that this is the primary key, and I need to tell it to generate a value for us. So it'll generate the primary keys for me. So that's my entity bean. That's all I need there. Now let's go in and create the Spring service that will actually expose access to this backend data out to the front end. So the name here will be foo, and then let's just hit finish. So now for this class, we need to add a few annotations on the class. The first one is that we want it to be a service, and then the next one is that this is going to be a remoting destination, so that this class will be exposed so that Flex can talk to it. Now in this class we need to be able to connect to Hibernate, and Spring provides a really convenient way to do that using the Hibernate template. So what I'm going to do is add in here a protected, and this will be a Hibernate template, and we'll just call it template. And then we want to actually take the session factory, the Hibernate session factory that I configured in Spring here. So to do that injection, let's set up a public void set session factory, and this takes a Hibernate, or this takes a session factory, and we'll call this session factory. And now in this function, what we're going to do is set up our template. So we just say template equals new Hibernate template, and then that takes the session factory. And then we also need to tell Spring to inject the session factory into here. So to do that, we're going to add an annotation here called autowired. So that'll allow us to get access to our Hibernate objects. So now we need two methods in this service. one that will allow us to add bars to our database, and one that will get our bars. So let's create a public, and this one will be void add bar, and this will take a string name, and we could have also taken the bar value object here. Either way it works fine. So now let's create a new bar, and then we're going to call bar.setName and set it to name. And now we use the template to actually save this object. So we do template.save and pass it our bar. Okay, so that's all we need for add bar. Let's add another method to get the bar. So we'll do public, and this will be a list, so Java util list of type bar, and then this will be called get bars, and takes no parameters. And all that this does is return template dot find by example, and then we just create a new bar, and that'll do our fetch of our bars for us. So now the last thing to do in here is that in order to expose these two methods out to Flex, we need to add an annotation here called remoting include. So I just add that on both of these methods that I want to be exposed remotely. So now let's, our backend is totally configured. Let's go back and let's start up our Tomcat server. So that's deploying out that WAR file and start up Tomcat. Looks like that was all good. Now let's switch over to the Flash perspective here and create a new project, a new Flex project. So new Flex project, and let's call this one bar list. And can be a web application or a desktop. You can choose. I'll choose web, and we'll use the Flex4 SDK. And we'll tell it to use BlazeDS for remoting, and then configuration should be good. Let's hit finish. So there's our basic Flex application. What we need to do in here is we can just switch over to design view, and now we can start building the UI and connecting it back to our backend. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell it to connect to data service, specify BlazeDS as the server, and it's already gone out and it's fetched the different services that I'd configured on my back end and exposed through Spring. There's only one, that foo service. So we can just select that and hit finish. And so now it's gone out, introspected those services. It's seen the add bar method and the get bars method. It saw the bar entity, and it created a client-side stub for the services and for the entities. So now to create our application, what we can do is take our data grid and just drag it out into our application. And then let's take the get bars method and drag that onto our data grid. You'll see it's automatically adjusted the column names based on the data that's being returned. And if we go switch over into code view, we can see what all was created. So there's the data grid. What's happening is that we have this foo service that it created from the backend service there, and a call responder. And in the data grid, when it fires a creation complete event, it's going to then go call foo.getBars, and then when a response comes back through data binding, it'll update the data in the data grid. We can trigger these events whenever we want. That's just the default when we're using the code generation in the data wizards. So we need to do one thing for this to work. I need to actually go tell foo how to connect to our backend server. So to do that, what I need to do is add a channel set to this foo service. And there's a really great, there's a few different ways to do this so that we're not going to hard code in. In this example, I'm going to hard code in the URL, but you can avoid that by using frameworks such as Swizz or a number of others out there. So here I'm just going to put in, for this demo, put in the URL to our message broker and then the AMF channel there. And so that's it. That's my AMF channel. That's all that we need to do to tell it how to connect back to that server. So let's save this and see if it works. So when we run this, hopefully we see a data grid, and we may not see any data yet. Yep, no data yet because our database has just been created, so we don't actually have any data back in our backend system. So next thing to do is to add a way to add some bars. So let's go back into design view, and what I can actually do is select this add bar method, and then I'm going to tell it to generate a form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a form for the add bar, and I can configure all sorts of things around here. I'm only doing create method here, and let's just hit finish. So there's our form. I'm going to drag this down below the data grid there and line it up correctly. So that's our form to add a new bar. If we go look back at the code, we'll see it's added a little bit more code. Now has the form down here with the form input, the button that will add the bars. So let's save this and see what happens when we run it now. So here we go. We have our data grid, and now we have our form. So let's go add a bar. Let's go add the Forest Room 5 here in Denver. Hit add bar. So I think that it actually added that to the backend database when I hit that add bar method, but my data grid isn't wired up yet to refresh its view of the data. If I hit reload, hopefully I'll now see that bar. There we go. So now it is in the data grid. But we really want the data grid to automatically refresh when we add a bar. So to do that, what we're going to do is on our call responder for add bar result, so when we get a successful result from calling add bar, all I'm going to do is call this function that is up here that is fetching the bars, calling get bars on the back end. So I'm going to call that, and I'm going to pass it event, and in order to pass it event, I need to go change the type here from flex event just to event. But let's go back now to our application, and now when we go in and add bars, hopefully those show up immediately in the data grid. So let's go add another bar. My brother's bar is another great bar here in Denver, so let's hit add bar, and there we go. Now that's showing up automatically. We can try another one here. Let's see, what's another good bar in Denver? One of my favorites is the Yak and Yeti. There we go, add bar, and so we see those automatically showing up in the Flex data grid. So really with just a little bit of coding, we were able to build a Flex UI that connected back to our Spring Java backend, which was using Hibernate for persistence. So pretty simple to get started with these new Flash Builder for Data Wizards. Thanks for watching. Feel free to email me or post anything on my blog if you have questions.